Okay, everyone, welcome to this next video lesson. All right, make sure you have paper and pencil out, ready to take notes. Okay. So the first thing that we always do is we always identify the name of the video lesson, right? And the name of the video lesson is Properties of Exponents. But this is part 2, right? And we're going over the big 6 rules. The big 6 rules, right? We have Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4. So we have 2 more to go. We have Quotient Property and the Powers Property. Today, we're going to focus on the Quotient Property. Okay? So, let's get started. Right. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight here Quotient Property, right? So quotient means division, right? The quotient it means the answer to a division problem. So you say, what is the quotient of 4 and 2? That means 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the quotient of 4 and 2 is 2. What is the quotient of 6 and 3? 6 divided by 3 is 2. So the quotient of 6 and 3 is 2, right? Quotient means to divide, right? So the rule, exponent rule, is that when we have the same base and we're dividing the same base, with m and n with the exponents, what we do is we subtract the exponents, right? So when we're dividing and we have the same base, m and n, we subtract them, m minus n, right? Which makes sense because look at this rule. You guys remember this rule? When we multiply the same base, we added m and n. See? M plus n. So that means that the opposite of both multiplying is dividing, and the opposite of adding is subtracting, right? So let us see what that looks like. So let's do a couple of examples. So let's say I have 3 divided by 5, but I also have x to the 5th power, y to the 4th power, and on the bottom I have x, and I have y to the 3rd power. Just like that. Look at that. That's a 3, by the way. Can you tell it's a 3? Yeah, okay. So, same thing as always. What we do is we're going to separate. Okay? So first we're going to do big numbers or regular numbers. And our regular numbers here are 3 and 5. So, I'm going to write here 3 divided by 5. Okay? Next, I'm going to do x, right? X. And what are my exponents to x? Well, this x down here has an invisible 1 here. So my exponents for x are 5 and 1. 5 and 1. And the rule when we're dividing is we subtract. So 5 minus 1. Right? We also have, so this is times here, times. We also have y. Well, what are my exponents for y? Look at y and y. We have 4 and we have 3. So we're going to subtract 4 minus 3. So 3 over 5, I can't divide 3 over 5. That just stays 3 over 5. So I'm going to leave it as 3 over 5. Okay, and I'm going to draw my line here. Now, you guys see my x here? 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, we're going to write this on top. X to the 4th power. And my y, 4 minus 3 is 1. So we could just keep it as y. And that is my final solution right there. Right? That's my simplification. Right here, this one. Right? 3x to the 4th y over 5. How about that? Right? Okay, let's do another example, okay, of what the division looks like, the quotient looks like. So if I have negative 2 m to the second, n to the fourth, and I have negative 4 m to the seventh, and that's it. So what do I do? So, same as the first example, I'm going to separate the big numbers, the regular numbers, and I'm going to write them together. So I'm going to put negative 2 over negative 4, like this. Okay. Now I'm going to write my m's. My m's are, the letters m. Well, m, I notice, has a 2 and a 7. So I say 2 minus 7, right? And I have n to the fourth, but I have no n down here, so I'm just going to write it as n to the fourth here. Look at that. So let us start reducing here. So negative divided by negative is a positive, so these are going to cancel out. But I notice that 2 and 4, I can reduce 2 and 4. If I divide both of them by 2, like this, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I get 1 over. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so I get 2. Look at that. And I'm going to extend my line here. And next I have m. Okay, 2 minus 7 is a negative 5, right? Because 7 is bigger, and 7 is a negative, 2 is a positive. Subtract 7 minus 2 is 5. 7 is a negative, so the answer is negative. And then I have n to the fourth power, right? Now, this looks like the final solution, guys, but I have to make this negative 5 into a positive 5. So how the heck do I do that? Well, let us remember the property of negative. Look, if I want to make something positive, I move it down. Look at that. 4 to the negative 1 became 4 to the positive 1. It went from the bottom, from the top to the bottom. 5 to the negative 1, 11. Sorry, let me restart. 5 to the negative 11th became 5 to the positive 11, and I went from the top to the bottom. Right? 24 to the negative 8 became 24 to the positive 8, and when it went from the bottom to the top. So this m to the negative 5, I'm going to move it down so it could become m to the positive 5. So let me rewrite here again. Let me write my, so my 1 is going to stay up here. My 2 is going to stay down here. My m to the negative 5, I'm going to move it down and make it m to the positive 5. M to the positive 5. And this n to the fourth, it's already positive, so I'm just going to leave it up on top. N to the fourth. And that right here, kiddos, is my simplification. Right? There you go. Look at that. Okay? So, let's do a couple more examples so you guys are comfortable with this, right? So everybody, so you're comfortable with this quotient property. So let's start here. So first of all, the instructions say simplify. Your answer should contain only positive exponents. So let's remember, only positive exponents. So let's do number 1. Okay. Again, I am going to separate my regular numbers, right? Which are 19 and 17. So I'm going to write those on the side by themselves. 19 over 17 times, okay, I have my v and my v, and that 14 and 8. So since I'm dividing, I know I have to subtract 14 minus 8. So I'm going to say v 14 minus 8. Look at that. Okay. So I get, finally, okay, 19 and 17, there's nothing I can do to divide them. This is 19 over 17. There's nothing I can do to divide them. There's nothing I can do to reduce them. So it just stays 19 over 17, like that. Now my v, I'm going to extend my division line here. My v says 14 minus 8, which is 6. So v to the 6. And that, kiddos, is my simplification. I have simplified number 1. Look at that. 19v to the 6 over 17. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. Let's try number 2. Okay. So again, I am going to identify my regular numbers, which is negative 12 and negative 9, right? So let me write those two together here. Negative 12 and negative 9 times, okay, what's my next variable? X. X to the 10th, and no other x down here. So this is just going to be x to the 10th times, let's see, I have y, and I have 3 on top and 13 on the bottom. So I know I'm going to subtract because I'm dividing. So y 3 minus 13. Okay, so what do I have left? Well, I noticed that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So these two cancel each other out just like that. And with 12 and 9, I can divide them both by 3. I can reduce them by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay. Now my x to the power of 10, there's not subtracting anything, I'm not adding anything, so this just becomes x to the power of 10. Now my y 3 minus 13, this is positive and this is negative, so I subtract 13 minus 3 is 10. And it's a negative 10 because 13 is bigger and 13 is a negative. But wait a minute. Look what the question said. Look what the instructions say. Your answer should only contain positive exponents. So that means, kiddos, that I got to make this negative 10 positive, and I do that by moving it down to the bottom and make it positive 10. But I move the whole thing. This whole thing goes down to the bottom and becomes y to the positive 10. So I'm going to say 4 over 3. X to the 10 stays the same. Y came down and became positive 10. And that is my question simplified right there. My number 2 simplified. 4x to the 10th over 3 y to the 10th. Right. That's my final solution right there. Perfect. Okay. Finally, last kind of problem you're going to see in your assignment, right? So let us again identify regular numbers 3 and 5. So I'm going to separate those guys, and I'm going to write them like this. 3 over 5 times, what's my next variable here? X. X to the 5th to the power of 5, and x to the power of, this is a divisible 1 here, right? X to the power of 1. So I'm going to write x. And since I'm dividing, I'm going to say 5 minus 1. So 5 minus 1. And times, what about y? y, and y. Okay. And I have 9 on top and 5 on the bottom. So since we're dividing, we're going to subtract. Y, 9 minus 5. Finally, I have z. Z, and I have 3 on top and 8 on the bottom. So it's going to be z 3 minus 8. All right. So 3 cannot divide by 5. And there is no number that I can reduce 3 and 5 by. So that just stays 3 over 5. Let me extend my line here a little bit. My x, let's see, x is 5 minus 1, which is just 4, x to the 4th. My y, 9 minus 5, which is also 4, so y to the 4th. And finally, my z is 3 minus 8, positive 3, negative 8. I subtract, 8 minus 3 is 5. And I get negative 5 because 8 is negative and 8 is bigger. But you already know there's a problem here. This negative 5 needs to be positive, so I'm going to move z down on the bottom and make 5 a positive. So when I rewrite it, right, I'm going to have x to the 4th, y to the 4th, and z is moving down and becoming a positive 5, just like that. That's a terrible 5, guys. There you go. And that right here, kiddos, is our number 3 simplified. Look at that. With only positive exponents, right? Only positive exponents. And those are the kinds of problems you're going to see in this next worksheet here, right? Quotient division problems where we're going to subtract the exponents, right? So, thank you guys for being here. Make sure you paid attention. You wrote everything down. Rewind if you have to. Click rewatch to make sure you got everything down. All right? See you next time.